Party people, we are here with Dr. Chip Dodd, the Heart Doctor. Today on Feelings Friday, the author of Voice of the Heart, Needs of the Heart, Keeping Heart. Do I capture all the books that have the heart books? I know I don't capture all your books.
Parenting with Heart.
Parenting with Heart. I always forget Parenting with Heart, which I think was actually one of the best parenting books that I've ever read. You know.
Hey, listen, that's great to hear because you've read a bunch of them with all your education, all the stuff you've had to read. So you know what you're talking about. I haven't read a bunch of them, but I'm glad we wrote it.
Well, it is. I mean, it is definitely a unique perspective because it's a book about the heart, but it's also a book about parenting, but it's about the parents. Right? Because a lot of times, other books about parenting is about how do you make great children, but a lot of times it overcomes, like it just skips over you personally.
Yeah.
But I like the whole idea, and I believe wholeheartedly the idea is that you cannot give what you do not have. And the reality is, if you're not healthy, I don't care what's going to happen. You are not going to have healthy children. And
yes.
So I just think that is an important principle. And I think that focus and that emphasis in Parenting with Heart is a great, great emphasis.
Yeah, and health is really about being able to live with emotional vulnerability and become emotionally resilient, which means that you're not in control of life and you're limited. I mean, it's just like being good at being human in need of God. That's what makes a healthy parent.
Yeah, and that's really good. And so you're the Heart Doctor. So I will not forget that. Voice of the Heart, Needs of the Heart, Keeping Heart, Parenting with Heart. Dr. Chip Dodd, the Heart Doctor, who writes all about the heart. And do you got the PhD on the matters of the heart? Is that what your PhD is in?
Yes. What's funny is, I go home like I'm Dr. Dodd, by label. I go home and Sonia says I'm like Donkey from Shrek. I mean, that has stuck with me. She says, like, you just don't be quiet. You need to shut up, Donkey. Kind of thing. So I never forget where I came from. No way.
Well, that's good. It keeps you humble. There's a great humility about you, and I really do appreciate you. Well, Chip, let me just go ahead and just throw it out there today. Right now we've been doing sermon series, and in our sermon series, we have hit all the different things. We've been talking about Corona. The Chronicles of Corona is kind of what I've named them. We're actually ending week 11 for Georgian, since we've been in quarantine, or since even though they have reopened, quote unquote reopened, we've still been social distancing. Kids are still out of school. Now they're out of school. But we've been in it. So since basically literally it's day 76 today, of the quarantine. But, I've talked to the people, and, we was talking about like what are topics that we could do. And so I went into a series that I was thinking about, like a sermon series on the book of Proverbs. And I was just going to walk through the book of Proverbs, specifically kind of the first section on Proverbs, just talking about wisdom, because what people need is practical wisdom in our day and in our time. And I worked on that, and, I was ready and prepared to preach that, because we preach on Friday. Literally after this time is when I go and I'll preach the sermon for Sunday. Then we pre-record it, and then we give it on Sunday. But I woke up today just like with an uneasy feeling with it, and it's the same kind of uneasy feeling that I had yesterday when I got on here on Facebook Live, that I had a certain subject and I had a different talk, and I was just like, everybody, I wish I could talk about something different. I wish we didn't have to do this, but I can't. I'm tired. And I just kind of expressed my anger, my hurt, my sadness, all of those things. And I said, we just got to talk about it because, and I focused in on I don't know if you remember or if you know about the stuff that happened at Bramble Park in New York,
with Cooper.
With the Cooper, I forgot, Miss Cooper and the other, and then how she weaponized the fact that I'm going to call the police and tell them that an African American male is threatening me. And that just like really grieved me, especially in light of the murder of the Floyd thing, is that is a weapon that has been accepted by our society to use against Black men specifically. And then I just started thinking about, man, this is a problem. This is an issue. I just can't keep on, I just can't allow this to go. And so anyway, I was thinking about talking about wisdom, but I talked to some of the people in our residency this morning, and I just came to the conclusion we got to talk about it. So literally for the next 4 to 9 weeks, I don't even know the name of the series. I'm going to be talking about the things that divide. The things that divide us, the things and how as the church we can address it. And instead of just preaching at people, we're just gonna have a time where I'm gonna be interviewing people, maybe like this, maybe bringing people in and still social distancing, but just talk to people about the things that divide in the racial tension, in a racialized society, and just thinking about that. And I've come up with some different topics and some different things, but I want to talk about it. And I know, I even see my boy PT Enrolo. What's up, PT on here, just talking about this idea and and just understanding it, specifically Floyd. Floyd, he actually was ministered to by the guy that the pastor I was referring to, PT Enrolo. He was ministered to. He knows him. And there was another guy, Justin Bowden, 2 pastors that I know that have ministered to this guy. And so this is hitting us closer to home. It brings fear as an African-American male. It brings all of those things that are happening. And I was just like, as a church, what can we do? And historically, I would always bring our church together and we would talk about it, and we would but nothing necessarily external. So I was like, how can we not do either or, but both and? So what I'm going to do is just talk about having an honest conversation with people in our church and putting that on display during our Sunday gathering times, addressing different issues like this, issues of society, issues that are dividing us, and just talking about them in this way. And so that's kind of where I am. And so literally we're going to start this Sunday, and we're going to talk about these issues that are dividing us. And so I don't know if that makes any coherent sense to you, but it's something that is just kind of, I woke up angry. And I woke up saying, like, I can't just kind of keep moving on as if things are not happening around. And as a church and as the leader of the church, God has given me this platform, and I want to talk about this for shepherding our church, but then also put it on display for people to see, just like, how do you have honest conversation where it's honest conversation and not necessarily harmful conversation. However, you may be hurt in our honest conversation.
Yeah, and things may be exposed. I've been thinking a lot about that. I love what you're saying, because, by the way, for everybody listening, that literally, you mean you and I got on and you said 3, 2, 1, go.
Yeah.
So we're not prepped, and I guess sometimes that's a mistake, sometimes it isn't, but it's trust too. I mean, we do this with each other. but first, like this is kind of, it sounds intellectual at first, but it's more like a stepping off stone. Excuse me. But racism, and racism there's a definition. Racism is revenge against a people group, even a person, but a people group. It's revenge against a people group for perceived or actual harm. Okay? And so racism is always about getting revenge against the people group for perceived, which means prejudiced, or actual historical harm, if from yesterday or 100 years ago. And the thing is that racism is literally, it's grounded, its foundation is in fear, and it's rooted in trauma. Its roots are in trauma.
Yeah.
And it therefore, the truth is it can't be healed until 2 things are addressed: fear and trauma. And the thing is, racism, by in and of itself, the trauma creates a divide. And there are 2 sides. There's the side of chaos and harm and abuse of power in all its forms, and injustice and perpetuation. So that's one side. And the other side is strength, justice, mercy, and love.
Right.
And, Paul was so clear. He said, in Christ, there is no male or female. There is no slave or free man. There is no Gentile or Jew. It's like we're one. Now that's words. Those are words.
Right.
But, and so, and you and I have talked a lot about this, and there's a real problem. There is no solution, nor will we ever get rid of racism or injustice or the poor, or then it's hopeless. No, not at all. It's as crazy as it sounds, it's about individuals living and fighting for strength, mercy, love, and justice, but doing so in a way that is a matter of the heart.
Right. I think that is the critical piece, is like, how do we do that in a matter of a heart that promotes and that drives us into action? Like, so it is, because, as I've been, thinking about this, like, yesterday, like literally as I'm preparing my sermon that I thought I was going to preach, that I'm not going to end up preaching, but
which I'm glad to, by the way.
Yeah. As I was preparing that, I was just, thumbing through, and I get my alerts from CNN, and I get my alerts from different places, and I see they're rioting in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, right? They're rioting, and I'm like, And this is the problem, that oftentimes, because situations like this brings out the worst of everybody, right? And then there easily can become kind of this justified righteousness. But, that brought out some traumatic environment to me, because I don't know if you know, but I was in Los Angeles when the Rodney King verdict came out. And I was literally in the middle of all of that, in the middle of all the rioting that was taking place. And I just remember, there is nothing redeemable. There's nothing justifiable about this action that's going on, that we're tearing up our own neighborhoods, we're tearing up our own places, we're looting, we're stealing, we're doing these things. And how are we saying that this is to support, or to protest the Rodney King verdict?
And see, that's what I'm saying. It from the context of revenge, it's justifiable. That's what's so crazy. I mean, if you start out with a center point or core, where your focus is defending yourself against having to feel anything, it's justifiable.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
It's
not okay.
And that's where, like, for me as an African-American male, I wrestle with it, because on one, I'm like, yes, it's justifiable. And I'm mad and I'm pissed just as much as anybody else. But, and I think, but at the same time, like we've talked about, it's not, like, as a believer, it's not by any means necessary, but it's by all possible means. So I can't just simply join in and begin to think that me harming someone else is okay if I've been harmed, and that's like, and so in creating that revenge-oriented mindset, and so I think that's it. And it's now, it feels like, I don't know if you've been in that argument, you've been in an argument with your spouse, and that is when you're in that argument with your spouse, that the argument no longer is about the argument. The argument is about, like, how we're talking to one another and the disrespect that we're giving to one another or whatever. And I think that so often when we respond in a negative or in a survival kind of fleshly way,
yes,
what we end up doing is that we actually lose the focus of the argument that we're trying to promote. And so that's really where my tension is that I have, so like on one end, like I'm mad and I'm angry about what's going on, and I'm pissed about what's going on with, the Amy Cooper, the Christian Cooper, and all those. And even though, and what's interesting is that in each situation, the police, unlike the other events, the police were fired immediately. Amy Cooper was fired immediately. Both of them, it wasn't like this long, like that I heard the other day, 4 years of paid leave, and then we finally say, all right, we're separating from him after we give him 4 years of not having to do anything. Like, so, but like they was fired immediately. But again, like, and rightfully so, they want justice, and they want they, by meaning they, the governor, I think the mayor of Minnesota and the family of the Floyd family, they want murder charges, in which I think is justifiable as well. And I think that they need to do that. But does it seem like, but even as in that, like, what, like, how do we, like, revenge and vengeance is never going to really satisfy the depths of what we're really thinking that it's going to satisfy.
Now, the only thing that's going to satisfy is healing and getting your heart back, and through trauma. It's grief. Like, you know, I'll see, you know, in my daily life, say I'm going to the store, and I've noticed that, you know, I'll pass a African-American man or be talking to an African-American woman or something, just a store. And it's just like, we look at each other and talk to each other, and our eyes meet, and there's a few messages going on between us. Like, I greet her from my heart. I greet him from my heart. Like, look at him like, hey man, like, look, I'm not from where you think. And he's looking at me, I'm not from where you think. That you know that.
Yeah.
So we bypassed racism, and the eyes and the hello connection, the limit connection is sending two messages. Look, man, I'm safe and I care. And he looks at me and says, I'm safe and I care. And in that moment, he and I have a bond that says, I'm not living in fear with you, and I'm not going to live in fear with you. And that's healing, just that little bitty thing. But it also doesn't, it allows the trauma to have an opening for healing. Yeah. As crazy as that sounds, you're not going to, revenge will satisfy. And because sometimes even revenge is like a form of justice, but justice doesn't heal what happened. What heals what happened is grief and reconnecting and finding hope again. And like, Dottie, you and I'm white, you're African American. True?
Amen.
I mean, well, how come, like, you and I talk about stuff, and I like you like crazy, and I just think you're a good man, and you've always you've honored me and cared about me, and
let me ask you this though, Chip. Do you feel like you have the freedom to disagree with me? Like, in a real way, do you feel like, do you have that type of safety? Because what I've found is that so often what ends up happening is, as soon as someone disagrees or differs or whatever, we automatically throw people in that category.
Yeah, the fear starts.
Yeah.
The fear starts, and then the hypervigilance starts, and then the watching out for my own safety starts, and then I start placating, lying, patronizing, or attacking.
Yeah, because I'm sitting here listening to you, and it's like, all right, Chip, are you about to go to this colorblind thing? Like, where are you going? You know, and no, but that's what I'm saying. So like, you have these thoughts, but I'm like, what I feel like is needed more than ever is not just simply agreement on issues. What we need is safety. What we need is security. What we need,
where we can have heartbreak.
Yes, and that's just like
stories told.
Yeah, and so what we need is the ability to stop living so codependently on one another, projecting on one another about what's going on. Because as soon as let's just imagine you were to move into this colorblind idea, then I'm going to automatically begin to assume, oh, there he goes. He's going to talk about this heart stuff. I know he is the heart doctor, but now he's talking about heart stuff, and it doesn't matter about what you look on the outside, you know. And it's just like you begin to project, and then now, like, there's all type of fear and all type of things, and then that makes us shrink back, and that goes into that fight, flight, or freeze mentality that we can go into. Yeah, trauma reactions. So like, how can we not project? Because again, over these last couple of days, there were some feelings, and like I had some feelings about the Amy Cooper, Christian Cooper thing in the Bramble Park. I had some feelings about Scott Floyd. I had some feelings about, Breonna Taylor. I've had some feelings about like Ahmaud Arbery. I'm having feelings consistently about all of these things. And I'm having feelings about like why I need to have these conversations and to be able to talk about it. However, I also had feelings about the riots last night. And I was just kind of like, I had some feelings about that. But what's the problem is because we begin to do this group thing, that I am able to express my feelings about all the other things, but I'm not as able, specifically, in some community, at least be accepted, to say that I had some feelings about us rioting. And all of that had to do with my own story, because each one of those triggered some trauma in my story. And I remember being in the riots I was at the riots when the Reginald Denny, I don't know if you remember Reginald Denny, Reginald Denny, I was in the riots, like literally, like I was in one of the epicenters in Los Angeles, in the epicenter when the Rodney King riots and these riots were happening. And I remember chaos and pandemonium taking place and said, like, this is not safe. This is not good. There's nothing glorifying about this. There's nothing edifying about this.
That's what I mean. Besides, like it's chaos, abuse of power in every way. Like that cop abused power. Now the rioters are abusing power, and it's chaos, and chaos doesn't build anything. I mean, in harm, getting revenge, it's eating for a day, but not planting crops for a future. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. So that's why I'm coming back to strength, love, mercy, and justice, and staying on course with seeking those things. But we do have to be able to talk to each other. Like you and I think, could talk about anything. I swear, I really believe that. And that my hope is that in our future, we have more and more time. A number of times I thought, man, I'd like to sit down and spend just some hours just kind of like talking about it all. History, mine, yours, where we come from, what it was like, what's this, what's that. But I think I could talk to you about anything because I think I'm safe. You said the word safety, right, which means you're safe to ask me hard questions about the judgments you have about me. I'm safe to ask you hard questions about the judgments I have about you. Where you said, hey, you gonna do that colorblind thing? I'm like, and either I go, no, I'm not gonna do that, or I'll say, what are you talking about? Like, you have to educate me. Yeah. I'll go, oh, that one? No, I'm not doing that with you. But what's amazing, safety allows the truth to be spoken.
Yeah, and I think that's critical. Like,
what's the truth? What's the truth? The truth is not understanding, not you understanding me. The truth is me being able to tell you what happens in my heart and the stories that go with it. Because like when you were in LA, man, you're starting a story right there. And if you and I were just sitting together, me and you, I go, man, where were you? What was that like? And was that sad? Was that just like heartbreaking, see your place torn to pieces? And then you couldn't do anything about it? And that's why I keep coming back to grief. Grief doesn't solve a problem. Grief allows us to develop strength to care again.
Yeah.
And trauma keeps us from caring.
Right. But we have to, like, how many times can I cry? How many times can I grieve? And like the pain of grief is really what we have to continually embrace on a consistent basis. So I think that is hard, in which when we grow fatigue in the pain of grieving, or in the pain or the hurt of life that life brings, is a consistent thing that comes. I think it's hard for all of us to deal with on a consistent basis. So I'm here with Dr. Chip Dodd, who is he's the heart doctor. He is the author of The Voice of the Heart, Keeping Heart, The Needs of the Heart, and he is also the author of Parenting with Heart.
Hey, Dodd, what about like when you say you go back and forth on both sides, like this is injustice and that's injustice, and like it's like, what are we doing? Somebody stop, right? Yeah. Stop and what? Stop and come together. Stop and come and let's pray. Stop and, everything from looking at each other and remembering to a head nod or a shake of a head that says, hey man, I'm safe, you're safe. Let's be together, all the way down to getting into therapy and dealing with the stories of our lives that make us revenge seekers,
Hmm.
You know, all the way from hello to get into therapy, find out how real God is. I mean, you know, challenge relationship and stay connected, because it's about, you know, divide means separated.
Yeah.
And separated means not together. Not together can mean isolated. And isolated is where hyenas hunt. Hyenas always hunt for the isolated, which means, and that's the deceiver. The deceiver is always pulling us into isolation so he can have his fill.
Yeah.
Like a great white shark just swims and eats and does not care one bit what it's eating, just eats.
Right. That's good.
So, I mean, as soon as we lose heart, we lose everything.
Yeah, and that's one of the quotes I mentioned to you before, is this the idea that Pastor John Onwuchekwa basically said, he said, the goal of Christianity is not a fight for perfection, but it's a fight against isolation. And I think that is a critical thing for us to recognize and to understand. And so let's just go through some of the comments real quick that people are talking about. They're talking about this, the racism. Liz O'Lear, all the way from Cali, is here. It says, racism is revenge against a people group or a person. She's just quoting you. Perceived or actual harm. Racism is grounded in fear, rooted in trauma. It can be healed. It can't be healed until those two things are addressed: fear and trauma. I think that's good. My cousin Vicky's on here. What's up, Vicky? I hope you're doing well. Another quote that stood out to them was, the roots are in trauma. This is huge. We need to discuss the trauma of racism on white people. What has racism done to white people? White people like to pretend that racism doesn't affect us. White people have given up their God-given ethnicity for a lie, the race called white. This goes back to the Naturalization Act of 1790 and the first census taken in 1790. Yeah. So, I mean, so he's just talking about just the history and just like the idea, like, because a lot of times we do talk about privilege and we talk about whites, and I'm always just thinking about, like, who is this conversation to? Like, a lot of times, like, we would have, there's actually a march today in Atlanta, and, you know, one of my kids came up to my wife and said, like, I want to go and I want to protest. And we was like, well, who are we protesting? Like, what are we protesting? And she was like, the police. And we were like, no, you can't go. Or she, you know, no, you can't go. We can't just go protest the police. That's not, you know, what. But, you know, as we did some digging, it's actually not a protest against police. It's actually a protest saying that we matter. And I was like, okay,
it's a cry out saying, I'm here.
Yeah, it's a cry out. And that's what the actual protest was about. It was like, yes, we can go do that. We can protest that, saying it's a cry out saying that we matter. But what we don't want to do is just simply just like target, like, because there's one thing that happened that now we generalize that all police officers are bad, are all white people are bad, are all black people are you know, villains, are all black, you know, whatever it may be, that we can't just simply just throw that out. And so it's really important for us to understand that. And that's why, again, over the course of these next 4 to 9 weeks, on Sunday, Blueprint Church, we will be having a talk about honest conversations. And we're going to use the Sunday sermon platform to just talk about issues. If you have things that you specifically want to hear us talk about on Sunday, put them in the comment. Let us know, because we're going to take either 4 weeks to 9 weeks, I don't know, to talk about it.
12 weeks, maybe a year.
It may be. We're just going to, because this is an issue and we need to talk about it, and we need to show how do we talk about it specifically in the church, on the things that divide, especially in a church that is minority majority, that's multi-ethnic, in all of these things. And so I think it's important for us to recognize that. So Dyke, what's up, Dyke? Dyke Crane is on here. Thank you, brothers, for having this conversation. We need more brothers like you guys in the body of Christ. Amen. Thank you. We do need this. We do need more conversations, and I'm glad that, Chip, you're willing to get on, because sometimes that I've recognized that, like, what is it like to be a white man? Because you are kind of the antithesis of the problems. You are Uncle Sam. You are everything that embodies oppression and all those things. You are, to have a conversation, and specifically in kind of a minority majority context. Like, how, like, what are the feelings that you come into this conversation, and how do we create safer spaces for people like you and to be able to genuinely express kind of where you are.
That's a see, isn't that funny? Isn't that a great question that you're asking?
Yeah.
And like that question, that question breaks the stereotypes, just that question, right? Because the whole white privilege thing is like, I'm white, I got nothing to say, because I don't have a heartbeat, or I don't have a struggle, or I don't have pain, right? But of course it can be used to divert from the real subject of pain and racism. But like, not only that, but like when I was down at Reach Records some years ago, I remember Tadashi, who's a rapper, Christian rapper, and he is a very,
when you say rapper, it just sounds like you don't like, you pronounce like all the syllables, but this continue. I don't know, but it's just like,
hey, listen, man.
I'm messing with you. I'm picking on your whiteness right now. Go ahead and continue on.
Yeah, I go out to the country club where all the white people are, and I don't say it right there either. I can't say it. But what's amazing is, I was saying to Tadashi, and I was so glad. I mean, I got welcomed into Reach Records, which is, majority minority, and I'm talking about like, and it's hip hop, right? Like, and you can look at me, and you can read hip hop when you look at me. You can tell like that guy he's got the hip and the hop, right? Me.
Hey, Chip, stay away from the hip hop terms and this language. Hey, Shrek, Donkey. What you say, Donkey from Shrek?
Exactly.
This.
I know. So I told Tadashi, I said, man, I knew I was going to be speaking to the majority minority crowd and about the heart. So I dressed hip hop that day. I said, I got a little bitty stripe in my brown pants. I got on a check shirt. So I was showing that conflict, like that dance, that move of struggle. Mm-hmm. And he said, I mean, he's, like I say, he's 300 and could smack me down like with, with his finger. He's a man's man. He said, he's got this deep voice. He looks at me and goes, hey, man. I'm going like, okay, I know I'm in trouble right now. This is going to be funny. He said, hey, man, if you got to say you're hip-hop, you ain't hip-hop, man. I'm like, I know. We laughed our guts out. Well, what were we laughing about? We were playing around about all the stereotype, the junk. And what was so beautiful is that I was permitted to be there, and I hungered and welcomed to be there, wanted to be there, because I have a mission in mind to help people see who they're made to be so they can do what they're made to do. And when we fell into the territory of talking about heart, and when I say heart, I mean I am made like this, and I feel like this, and I ache like this, and I come from this, and I long for this, and I hope for this, and this hurts, and this is scary, and this is sad. I'm telling you, people who have the guts to do that, and I'm not saying that discernment disappears, but discrimination goes away. So
to some degree, are you saying that we have to have an anger? Like, and is it like an anger to show up and to be present? I guess I'm just, because that's what I'm like, because I want to have honest conversations. And like, even when we had like in 2016, when we were talking about this as a church, like I literally had times where I said, all right, I want all the white people to go into this room, all the black people to go into this room, all the, other category that's non-black or white to go into this room. And because I was like, I want you guys to feel that safe to be able to have the type of conversation that you would have if there weren't other people in the room. And I guess I'm just kind of constantly hitting my head to try to figure out, like, how do we create safe environments so people can tell the truth about what's going on inside?
Yes.
But to some degree, you're saying like the people have to be angry to tell the truth.
And angry means willing.
Yeah.
Angry means hungry. Angry means wishing. Angry means longing. And like, for example, I'm like, if I say this, like, I'm the first generation in my family. This is 2020. I'm the first generation that did not grow up behind what's called a double shovel plow and mules. Okay. Mm-hmm. My father tells a story. He said, I'd plow the ground and I would dream. And he said, and he put electricity in his parents' house after he got out of college, and then central heat and air when he started making money. So So if I say that as a white person, does that mean anything? Or is it like a card I'm playing to say, hey, 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 or, you know, what's that like for me? And what I'm really saying is, hey, if I'm speaking to a crowd that stereotype me, because I look like the stereotypic white person. I'm 6'4". I dress like I'm white. Like, see,
Yes.
you know.
I'm glad you gave up your hip hop days.
Yeah, and you know, I told you, and I love, you know, there's two hats you wear. One, the skid lid. You call it skid lid. We always call it a skid lid because I'm old.
Yeah,
I still call it a sweat hood, by the way. You know what a sweat hood is?
No.
It's a hoodie. It's a
hoodie. Okay.
So I say sweat hood. My son said, Dad, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And you got this other fedora. And man, you look so good in that. I mean, seriously, you do. You look cool. And then you know how to put the whole thing together, right? I'm embarrassing you.
No. I just need to wear it more because I'm in my growing my hair phase.
Yeah,
right
I kind of recommended you move in that direction.
Yeah. I'm in my growing, and I'm reaching that phase.
Hey, if you come in, we're doing this one day, and there's no gray. I'm like, how do you dye?
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna dye. I would rather go gray.
Hey, if you dye, you start sweating and it starts running down your forehead.
Oh no,
yeah.
No.
Hey, anyway, if I wore that hat, if I came in with the hat on like that, you would ask me to stop, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Like, shit, don't do that to yourself, right? But what I'm saying is, like, I look white, and people can mistake me for being whatever that label is. Whatever that is, they say, that's you.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is, you that's not me.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm not white. I'm saying you don't know me.
Right.
Because there are so many places I can go where I'm not accepted. It's unbelievable.
Right. And I think that's the thing. First of all, we're forced to generalize. We would be on sensory overload if we didn't generalize.
Absolutely.
We have to generalize. It's when our generalizations become negative is when
there's a difference between discernment and discrimination.
Yeah. And I think that becomes the tension, is when I have a negative generalization that is placed upon a negative experience. So like, I've had a negative experience with police officers that has made me generalize police officers in a negative format or in a negative way, but it was based upon my experience. And then the fear or the problem with that is that I begin to project all police officers in that way. In the same way, people will project on me if they had a positive or negative experience with an African-American male. They would project all of those experiences on me whenever they interact with me. And then what ends up happening, and the fear that oftentimes, that specifically as African-American men, that I fear that I have to either overcompensate my projection of what you think about me, as an African-American male. And, in order for us to have true heart connection, instead of just asking you, about that, being present with you, expressing my fear to you, and all of those things. And that just brings us in this circular loop.
There's this guy, when I was at North Texas, and you know Denton, Texas real well too, but when I was in North Texas, I remember I was working with this black guy at the university, and he said, I have to do twice as much as you to be seen as equal to you having what you have, to the right to have it, the thought, because I am judged before I start to take my first step.
Right.
And there is truth in that.
Yeah, and there is definitely truth. And we come into the perspective, it's been taught to, all these things, and and even the ways of trying to help it's been hard, and it's brought an unjust reality that in so many, and that's fleshed out in so many different ways.
Like Kenny said, he said something, we were doing a group at one time, and Kenny said, I did not know white people had pain. Like, he's a black guy. He said, I didn't know. Like, until I was like in my 20s, I didn't know white people had pain. Yeah. So it's like, there's so much.
There's so much.
Hey, by the way, Hadi, my son, William, was in South Africa for like 5 months. And had I known what was happening, I tell you, I swear I would have found enough money to fly there and bring him home. But he didn't tell us what all was going on. But he wasn't in Cape Town. He was out. It was working with this justice system stuff, and he thought he was going on an adventure. He didn't know he was going to find the heart of trauma. But he saw 2 murders, beatings. Was down in some of the townships, which is like where the 10 cities, cardboard cities, and mugged. And then even one of the last times before somebody, he was just walking out jogging in the neighborhood, and he lived with a black woman there while he was there, and he said he saw levels of soullessness that horrified him. But even one of the last things that happened, he was jumped with a guy with the ice pick on his chest, and he's got a scar down his arm. He was just out jogging, and he just thought, I'm not doing this anymore. And they fought, whatever. And he realized, like, I could kill this guy. And anyway, he didn't. But he experienced so much trauma related to racism towards him. And then he said sometimes in the mornings he would ride the train. He would go down into Cape Town to work out. I mean, he was white on a train. He said, I was the only white person on the train. And he said, but everybody on that train, everybody in the mornings at 8 o'clock in the morning, they're just trying to go to work. We're all just going somewhere to work. But if you're on the train at 10 o'clock in the morning, your life's in danger because the gangs take over the trains.
Yeah.
So he said, Dad, 80% of everybody is just looking for the same thing. We're looking for some peace and a paycheck and to be able to go home and hang out with my family and then walk in my neighborhood and see my neighbors and say, what's up? How you doing? And what can I do for you? And where'd you get that car? And we just want to live, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, and his trauma has shaped some of his vision about how he sees the world and fear. And that is what happens to people who live in threat. And racism is threatening.
It is. It very much
threatening.
No, this is really good, man. Time flies when you're having fun.
Hey, but if we don't deal with our feelings, what I mean by threatening, I'm sorry, Dottie, but we don't deal with our feelings. Threat means we're having feelings, and either we deal with those feelings or those feelings deal with us when we try to run from them.
Yeah.
And that means chaos.
Right. And I think that's where we're at. We are at chaos. We are at chaotic times, chaotic moments, and we're doing that. And so let's go through some of the comments that have said, and I'm sorry for taking a while to get to some of these, but
you have a lot to say, so me and you have a lot to say.
Yeah, we have a lot to say. Ange Hart says this: I don't think revenge is the answer, but God is a God of justice, and we should fight for biblical justice, especially when we see people so clearly disregarding the Imago Dei and other people, specifically African Americans. There's the tension between unhealthy revenge and righteous anger. As much as rioting is wrong, it's driven by trauma, frustration, anger. That means we've been told to pursue in bringing about justice are not only not working, they're also being weaponized for to further discriminate against the most vulnerable of us.
Yes, and you know what? Everything, I 100% agree. No, 99% agree, but I do not believe that the rioting is driven by anger.
Yeah.
And I don't think murder is driven by anger. I think it's driven by terror and fear.
Right.
Rage. And I mean, voice of the heart, it's real clear. We talk about the difference between anger and rage. And what we're seeing everywhere, that murder of George Floyd, that was rage.
But she's talking about like the response. How would you characterize the response?
Righteous
the rioting that took place, the burning down, the looting, the burning down of the police station, the looting yesterday. What would you say about that? In response to the situation.
See, I think that's not a response. I think that's a reaction. And did you see? Who benefits from who benefits from murder and riots? And I'm talking about the murder of Floyd. Did you see where the white guy dressed in all black was breaking windows at the AutoZone? You see that?
No. I did see the AutoZone. Yep, I did.
Yeah,
see that.
and to begin the conflagration, to start the chaos. Like, who's benefiting from all of that? Who benefits from dividing us and separating us and isolating us from each other?
But I think that's the reason why. Again, we got to talk about, like, if like we got to feel our feelings, we got to agree, we got to tell the truth about what's going on individually and collectively, but we got to become advocates. If we're not advocates, then things like that is justifiable. Like, we don't, like, what is the involvement, and we don't know, I mean, what is the involvement of the owner of AutoZone? What's the involvement of all the things? Like, again, when I'm driving down the streets, I was at a Laker game, I heard about the Rodney King verdict, I'm at a Laker game, I'm coming out of the Laker, and like literally in the neighborhood, like there are people running, breaking windows, gas stations, black owned, white owned. It really didn't matter. Korean, like Asian, like so many. It really did not matter. There was just like, I'm rioting, and I'm gonna use this opportunity to take whatever I want to do, and I'm gonna do it in the name of justice. And that's my issue. That's my problem. That event is not. To me, it's not helpful. And I understand that it's in response to an injustice and there's a righteousness. And I agree that it's an anger that comes out of survival, but that survival is the same potentially survival that is coming out from a cop who has a mentality. Somebody's not going home today, and I'm not going to be one that's not going home. So I'm going to step my bounds, and then I'm going to over this demean you or whatever. I was like, they're not right, and I can't justify one and demean the other or to speak out against the other. Like, to me, they're both wrong.
They're both wrong. And hey, Dhati, you and I talked about this quite a bit. Reaction versus response. Reaction versus response. And reactions are things we do to get away from feelings, predominantly fear. Response is the courage to tell the truth about what I'm feeling. Now, I know when the person's in danger, like, hey, excuse me, but I feel fear and I feel hurt when you say those things don't matter. I get that, which means I need to run away or I need to fight for. I mean, I get all that. But reaction, when the reaction is bigger than the event, it means I've gone to my past. Like when you and Angie get in an argument, okay, not you and Angie, say me and Sonia get in an argument, because y'all never argue, I'm sure. But when me and Sonia get in an argument, and if it escalates, it's not about what we're talking about. It's about some unresolved issues, unresolved things from our past. When like, hey, how come you didn't pick up so-and-so at the cleaners? Or how come you didn't take out the garbage? Say, how come you always telling me that? Like, what's going on around here? Right. And it's old resentments, and it's anxiety and depression. Like Ahmaud Arbery, that horrifying experience started 40 years ago, that brought those people to that moment at that day.
Right. No, and I agree, and that's what I'm saying. But I agree with what you're saying. But the question becomes is like, okay, but it is a big, like, we're talking about the loss of a life. So so on in it is, and like I said, like, I'm responding to the trauma of my past life and things of those natures, or even the fact of saying that this could have been me, because of the semblance or the relation that I have. But so I don't like the idea of kind of overreacting. Is this? I think what I'm hearing you saying is it's not necessarily an over or under reaction. It's just simply that you are reacting based upon the trauma in your own life, But I also would say, to some degree, there is a right and a wrong way to react, right?
Yes.
And that's kind of what it says, like the idea of righteous anger. And I think that's what Angie is saying, is like, it's okay to have a righteous anger, but the Bible says don't sin, don't strike the rock, right? And there's never a justifiable way or reason to, justifiable to say it's okay for me to sin. Like, I'm justified in my sin because you shouldn't have done that to me.
Yes, correct. 100%. 100% agree. Yeah. And I think white people, and this is generalizing, so it's always dangerous, right?
Yeah.
White people are scared of black people.
Yeah.
Right. Is that true?
And I think white people are scared of black people. I think black people are scared of black people. I think black males are scared of black males. Like I think
Yes.
that there's a reality that we
White
have.
males are scared of white males.
Like
based on-
yeah. So yes, I don't want to take your point, but yes.
No, go ahead.
I
No, go ahead. Keep on, please.
No, I just think that there's a reality because we've been taught to fear, specifically black males. So that's the reason why Amy Cooper can all that she got to do is say the word. I'm gonna call the police and tell the police to a man who's not doing any wrong, who's
Except
actually
helping her.
Yeah, except trying to get her to obey the law. I'm gonna call the police because like this is the unspoken. Because if I call the police and if I say a black male is threatening me, an African American male is threatening me, it's not gonna turn out good for you. So
right.
This
and
is
a white female saying that.
And a white female saying that. So knowing that, you need to watch yourself. And that to weaponize that is scary, to know and to recognize that this is what's happening. And so like that doesn't create safety. So we've been talking about safety and all that doesn't create safety in anyone. So I just think that that's really important for us to recognize that. But we also know that mentality has been pushed in us all the way from incarceration to movies to all the different all these things that have been pushed in us, that black male are the most dangerous humans in North America. That's the narrative that we've been taught, that black males are the most dangerous people in North America, and we have to watch out. We have to watch out for them. Always keep one eye open when around black males, and that's scary.
This is kind of like crazy, but like if you go up into Appalachia, up into I don't mean Gatlinburg, I'm talking about up in the mountains, West Virginia, coal country. One of the highest, like let's see, is it close to Harrisburg, West Virginia, is the #1 death zone by drug addiction in the United States. 99% white, meth and so on. But like when you think about going up there, I don't mean as a black person or white person, but when you think about those people, what do you think?
I think hillbilly. I think I'm scared. I'm thinking I'm not going. I'm thinking all type of thoughts. I'm just like, there's certain places, Chip, that I will never know about, and I will never travel in.
Because they'll cut you.
Yeah.
They will kill you. They will absolutely, like, you're in the wrong town.
Yeah.
I 100% feel the same way. And there's a church there in this scary addicted town, and it's like 3,000 members come to this church with this guy who's gold. But it's like those stereotypes maybe have, like these things happen, right? You go up there, some things are going to happen, but stereotypes become the truth that doesn't leave room for the individual.
Yeah.
And because there's some people over there that are just like
golden people. But there's some great people there, and there's some people who would fit the stereotype. And I think that's the problem. And I love what you're saying is giving room for the individual. Like we have to be able to give room for the individual. And every time, like if something happens, like in Atlanta by a West Virginian, I can't all go hate all West Virginians, and I can't, and I think that is where the tension often lies, in these types of conversations, is when our generalizations are marked with a negative connotation, or a negative experience that now promotes and justifies my my discrimination.
Yeah, like Tadashi did not receive me because I passed the tests. Like I acted like he wanted me to, or acted like he expected me to. I passed the test because he's a man who's truthful, looking for truthful people. And I passed the test because I'm truthful. I'm not perfect, I'm truthful. Tadashi would not mind if he found out that I have racist streaks, or he found out that I'm a recovering addict, or that he found out that I had sin, you know, like in my past that I still carry sorrow for. He would not reject me for that, but he would have to stay away from me if I wasn't truthful.
Yeah.
So being truthful is how we pass the test with each other.
Yeah, I agree. I think being truthful, but we also got to create spaces to allow the truth to be stated. Because if we don't, then we're gonna miss it. We're gonna miss it. We're gonna miss each other. And sometimes I don't really think that we create safe spaces for us to disagree, for us to have problems with one another, for us not to be stereotyped.
We create fake places, not safe places.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Chip, we are at 55-minute mark now. We are definitely well over our time. I'm gonna read through some of the comments, and we can just determine if we have in the last 5 minutes. We just go a clear hour. The last 5 minutes of whatever we think that we need to discuss. Andy Rodenbaugh basically says, I agree. Safety is needed with this in conversations between the oppressed group and the oppressing group. Who gets to define what safety is? So I just think that I would say that the idea of safety is creating environments where all parties are going to be able to speak the truth in love, that we're not trying to harm one another. We may hurt one another because we're speaking the truth in love, but we're not trying to harm one another. And we're to some degree giving people space to know that I'm not going to run away. I'm not going to, you know, if I have something that I disagree with you, like if someone says that, hey, I voted for so-and-so, or I believe that we do need to do our due diligence before we administer justice to a cop because of it, you know, like whatever, they may disagree, but it doesn't mean that we need to do. So I just think that that's an important thing. Andy also says, for one of the week's Sunday discussion, can we discuss the need for white people to divest of whiteness and return to their God-given ethnicity? We use the term white as if it is an identity God gave to us, but it's an identity that enemy gave to us. And I guess he's referring to, like, I think it's both for African Americans and for white America, is that America to some degree has robbed us of our heritage. And so, like, for general, I took a test, and you know what they say I was from? They were saying, like, you from West Africa, and they just kind of just listed like all the countries in West Africa, and I was just like, this is not helpful at all. Thank you. But like a lot of times, you know, like you just basically told me that I'm from the continent of Africa, like my ancestors. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's not helpful at all. That's just like saying European American, like, you know. And so we have what
I did mine, and I'm like Northern European American, exactly. So it's nothing.
Like, it's just like, that's not helpful. But so what he's saying is, it's like, but it's hard to go back to saying where I mean, I don't know if I'm, you know, Nigerian, like if my descent is like Nigerian or what. I don't know if that's what he's saying, or
like identification through like tribal connections.
I don't know what he's saying. He's saying that this, like, eliminating whiteness and returning to God-given ethnicity. So I'm assuming ethnicity is saying like Ireland or Scottish or German, like German American. I don't know and that's what I'm assuming. I don't know, but that's kind of what he's saying. So anyway,
you know something, Dhati, I would love it. I guess I could, you know, I can be attacked for everything I say. Agree?
Yes, and it's easy. It's easy to attack you.
It's easy. You can too, right?
Yeah.
But like, you know, if there is a Christian identity, then that means our ethnicity is in brother, sister, mother, father, husband, spouse, wife, like a friend, mission-minded, generous, giver, fully alive, fruit bearer, market maker, you know?
Yeah.
I wish we could escape through relationship the ethnic separation. Culture is beautiful because of art, because the art of the unique expressions that are in culture, but culture is grotesque when it becomes a way to say you don't belong and matter.
Yeah. No, and I think and I think, yeah, culture, and I think all of the amoral things can be used as weapons or not weapons, like culture. And culture is one of those things that can be amoral, but we will always use it because we're sinful human beings to either exclude or, to bring in, and so many different things. And if we're not hitting some of the things that you talk about, like in the needs of the heart of belonging and mattering and security and attention, that we can end up weaponizing these things. And so, man, there's a lot of good comments in here. There's a lot of good comments.
What else is there? What else?
Oh, man. All right. So one that says, what are some practical and tangible steps we can take to cultivate change? What's the next right thing? I do not agree with the actions of the riots, but what alternatives are we giving them? So that's one. We can't comment on all, but Lucius said this: Black and brown men, especially inner city grown Black and brown men, rarely find safety to be fully present because people can't handle or don't want to deal with the experience that comes with them being fully present as they share their experience and are from their experience. And so we just talking about like the different experiences. And I think that is definitely because there's a certain way that often times that we can come from it. Angie agrees with you, says, tell them, Chip, go hats. This is how far back these comments go about wearing hats. And, she agrees with your idea of me going to hats. In order for white people to feel safe, Black and brown people often have to not be fully present. It would seem to me the onus would be on white people to create safety for Black and brown people, given the power dynamics at play. I would just say that it's on everybody to create safe environments. I do think that, obviously people, whoever's in leadership, whoever's forming the conversation, it's important on that to create a safe environment. But I think that is not, I honestly think that is something that whoever's controlling the conversation presently needs to create environments for safety. And again, I think we just need to frame it in the ways that there may be some people who are hurt because of this conversation, but hopefully none of us is trying to harm, that we are able to speak the truth in love. We are able to tell the truth about what's going on inside, and we're able to react and to be present with one another. I think oftentimes, being present with one another is different from harming one another. Sometimes we try to create a license to be able to say what I'm going to say and spew harm and, and vigilance and out to different people and not care about how it's going to impact you. And I don't think that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about just being able to speak whatever's on your mind. I'm talking about telling the truth about what's going on inside of you, but still not acting out in sin, right? There's never a justifiable reason for us to sin. And so it's important.
Hey, Dhati, there's a difference between being honest and being truthful. And this may sound silly, but let's say pretend like I go to a movie and I sit down, there's only one seat left next to this person. And let's say this person just hideously ugly, okay? And I say, man, you're so hideous ugly, I'm not gonna sit here by you. But I'm being honest.
Right.
But see, I'm not being truthful.
Yeah.
So what's the truth? The truth is, hey man, I'm so insecure. I live in so much fear of what people think of me. I'm afraid that if people see me sitting next to you, they're gonna think I'm with you. And I'm scared people won't accept me. And so, and I'll die before I feel lonely or have somebody say that to me. So I'm going to move because I'm so insecure and scared.
I love that.
That's the truth.
The idea, that's a great, the difference between honest and truth. And I think that is real. And I think because whenever you're not willing to confess, because what you did, you just confessed your shame. And
Absolutely.
And in confessing your shame, there doesn't always have to be a victim, right? But if you don't confess the shame, then there's always somebody has to pay the price. You
said that so well. And so we're really great about being honest. We just need a place to be honest. Well, see, honesty is just swapping licks.
Yeah.
Honesty is a way of projecting onto others what we don't want to tell the truth about ourselves.
Yeah, that's good. All right, Chip, we're never gonna get through all these. We can't comment on all, but this is good. This is good. Angie says,
so I tell you what, your show in the future is gonna have to be hour 15.
I mean, I know we're pushing on that right now. I agree with the experiences. Define us, and it doesn't translate from one culture to another. It's tough to communicate with that. Yeah. Stacy said they talked about the peaceful protest today in Atlanta. As that at the Capitol at 3:45. So yeah, that is they say a peaceful protest, and I pray that it remains peaceful, and I pray that it accomplishes the task that it sets out.
Amen. I hope so. And people need to speak, need to show up, need to say this isn't okay. This isn't okay. This is wrong.
It's a way to cry out, and I think that if we can
do something. Leaders lead. Leaders do something.
Yeah, Carly Lundy says this: oftentimes when conversations of racial injustice take place, I see a white person and a black person having dialogues to show some form of solidarity. The white brother empathizing with the hurts of the black community, showing the support of the pain, which is great. However, I rarely see white brothers taking this conversation to their own white counterparts, to challenge their own white brother, to condemn their apathy, or negligence, to address the radical bias that exists among the white communities, or the racial sin that needs to be sanctified in the hearts of the majority white congregants. Why is that? I think that is.
I want you to know, I'm seeing a lot more of that than whoever said that may think. I'm hearing lots more conversations that are like that are confronting.
Yeah, and the thing is that we're not in the room. We don't know exactly, but I do think that. Yeah, I mean, I think that's an important thing, that we need to be having these conversations with our spheres of influence.
Hey, Dhati, revenge and justice killed 6 million Jews. Stalin, in the name of communism, getting justice for communism, 38 million people killed. I mean, this racism is absolutely, it's the devil's playbox.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Yeah, it is. Ramon basically says, opportunists are always in the midst of fighting for injustice. We need to stop lumping these two separate types of people together. Are the peaceful protesters responsible for the opportunists? No, and I agree. I think that, Ramon, that's a great thing, because again, we're saying that it's a peaceful protest today, and I pray that it is, but there's going to be people who are going to probably use this opportunity to do what they need to make their opportunity. And I think that is the danger. And I think that's a part of the idea of what we're saying. But we also got to recognize that we are responsible specifically for the environments that we create, to some degree, and so if I know that this is something that easily could happen, then I have to be responsible. It's just like opening the church in the midst of the COVID-19. I can open up the church, and I know that there's a possibility of, if I open up the church, that people can be impacted and get infected by COVID-19. So it would be irresponsible for me not to do all of my due diligence to try to do that as much as I can. And I'm not saying that the people who are doing these peaceful protests are not considering these things, but we do need to make sure, if you are going to host, that you are also doing your due diligence to ensure, not to ensure, because you can't insure, but you have to do your due diligence to maintain that. You're saying it's a peaceful protest, then you got to do your due diligence to make sure that the protest is peaceful. And so I just think that that's important. Ramon also said, did you feel responsible for the looters that were present at the protests you were a part of? Honest question. No, and again, I think I just answered that question, Ramon. And I think that is just something that I feel responsible, especially for things that I'm leading and I'm organizing. If I create an environment, like next Friday, we're doing an environment for honest conversations of racial topics and honest conversation, I feel like I am responsible to making sure that we deliver on what we say. That we're creating a real environment to have honest conversation. And I think that that's really important for us to have. Right? There's so many more comments. We got to go. This is we're well beyond our time. We're at 1 hour and 10 plus minutes now, but I do appreciate you, Chip, as always.
Coming on. I appreciate you.
All right, you guys, until next time. And again, tune in this Sunday, Blueprint Church. We're gonna continue. I was talking about having an honest conversation, but honestly, I think what Chip said is it's not about simply just an honest conversation. It's about a truthful conversation. How do we tell the truth about what's going on inside and not simply project on one another? And how do we engage and create environments where we can have a truthful conversation that brings about reconciliation and that could, and justice and not pitting these things against each other, but for the sake of giving honor and glory to Christ. And so I'm really excited about it. We're going to do this again. I don't know, 4 to 9 weeks. We're just gonna talk about it, just like we've been doing on Feelings Friday. We're going to talk about it until we don't talk about it. But however, we're going to do it on our Sunday platform, because I think this is something that needs to be talked about in the public square. This is public, but I know our Facebook Live, our sermon gathering is where we get the most audience, and so we want to bring this to the forefront. So we're excited about.
And Dhati, you know what's so beautiful? In sick families, everything goes under the rug, and so like you say, you woke up this morning and said, "No way, I'm not doing this. I'm going to give up the sermon plan I had 3 months ago. I got to go with this." And so I love that you're not in denial, you're not dissociating, you're not pretending. And even yesterday, I knew you and I'd be talking today, or hoped we would. And it was like, okay, what is this? What's happening? I mean, there's no way that Dhati and I are not going to talk about this. Yeah. We have to.
Right.
I mean, think about if we gotten on here acting like, talk about football and soccer and, what are you doing for the summer? That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
And yet people do that all the time.
Right.
People literally act crazy. People who don't face and feel what's happening around them are acting crazy.
Yeah. And I know this is going to be a time for another day, but just we got to, it is impossible to carry the burden of responsibility for everything that's taking place. Like, we've never had a conversation on here about abortion. And that's a pro-life issue. We've never had a conversation about how mothers are being separated on the Mexican border. We've never had a conversation about so many other human life and human dignity issues. And so how are we going to give people the benefit of the doubt, when we're having these types of conversations? And just my silence doesn't mean that I'm complicit, because I can't talk about everything, but I can talk about the things that I'm angry for, and that are in that anger the people around me, because there's a reason why I didn't get up and talk about the problems in Syria today. I didn't wake up, talk about the issues all across America. I don't have the capacity, and I'm faced with my limitations. And so in that, we have to understand that and wrestle between that tension as we are addressing this, and not just automatically assume because someone is not talking about racial issues that they are automatically crazy or automatically ignoring or automatically being divisive or intentionally silent or whatever. It's just, the bottom line is that we cannot talk about everything. And that's why we have the body of Christ, and God is unleashing us to help to contextualize the hope of the gospel where we live, work, and play. And a problem is not a real problem unless it's your problem, and something becomes your problem if, I think, one or two reasons. One is through proximity, and other is through relationship. We got to diversify our relationships a lot more if we're going to really address this issue, and really begin to feel the burdens in a real heart level way with people who may be struggling with things that may not make us as angry as it makes them. And that's okay. That's okay. And so we just this thing is so layered. Again, I don't want to reopen a conversation. We'll circle back to this, but I appreciate you guys. Love you. And we will see you guys later.